I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So this was how every day in Mrs. Messina's first grade classroom at L.L. Owen Elementary in Pine Bluff, Arkansas began, including the mispronunciation in 1977 when I was a first grader. And most days this ritual would proceed uneventfully, but there was one day when there was an event, and this is the story of that day. This, my friends, is the story of the Pledge of Allegiance incident. So the day began like any other day. In the fall, my fellow neighborhood kid, Corey Allen, and I were waiting at the bus stop, waiting for the big yellow school bus to take us under the cloudy skies to school, and eventually it came. And as we rode the bus, we did what we did every day, which was to engage in silly young boy banter and also planning mischief. And this day, we planned the mother of all pranks, or at least so we thought. And we giggled as we imagined doing it, and I looked at him and said, "Are we really going to do this?" And he looked at me and he said, "I think we're going to do this." And together we said, "Yeah, we're going to do this." And so about 15 minutes later, there we were standing in the circle along with the rest of Miss Messina's class, reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. And like all of the other students, we had our right hand over our heart. But unlike the rest of the class, Corey and I each had our left hand over our, and here I should say, I'd like to be able to say that this was some sort of profane protest of American militarism. I'd like to be able to say that somehow the gesture had been influenced by the gestures of hip-hop artists, but this was 1977. Hip-hop was not even a thing. This was just us being very silly, dirty, nasty little boys, and so it was that our left hands were firmly upon our crotches throughout the Pledge of Allegiance. And it was splendid. It was that joy you get from thinking, we're gonna get away from doing this, get away with doing this really bad thing. And we were almost all the way through the pledge when across from us in the circle, the classroom stool pigeon, Tawana White, pointed directly at us and said with a gasp, "Miss Messina, look!" And each of us, Corey and I, underestimating just how quickly a first grade teacher's head could swivel and just how quickly her eyes could lock onto the offending hands, onto the offending crotches. There we were, not dropping our weapons soon enough. And there it was that she saw us and with her own gasp said, "Go to the office." And so we were dismissed and sent straight to the office. And here's where Corey and I were a little different. This was about Corey's 7th or 8th time to the office. He had been through the drill. He was not concerned at all. He was proud, he was unworried. Meanwhile, this was my first time going to the principal's office, and so the tears were streaming, I was sobbing, I was terrified. I thought, surely death awaits me in the principal's office. And then when I'm sent home, an even worse fate awaits me at the hands of my grandparents with whom I live. So I was terrified. Despite that terror, when we got to the principal's office and were separated, and I learned that Corey was being sent to the assistant principal, Mr. Harris, despite my terror, I actually managed a bit of sympathy for Corey, because I had heard about the electric paddling machine that supposedly the assistant principal owned, and who knows how many rounds it could deliver per minute. So I knew he was in some serious, serious trouble and in for a world of hurt. I, though, went to see Mr. Reed, and so I walked into Mr. Reed's office, and then I saw the diagonal striped tie, the button-down collar, the short-sleeve dress shirt. He was wearing the uniform of an elementary school principal, and I thought I saw rage on his face, but with the benefit of hindsight, I realized that it was actually just mild disappointment, perhaps a bit of amusement, and he was eager to get me out of there. But he had to scare me a little bit, and so he tried to muster a bit of a scowl, and I was crying, standing in front of him at his desk, tears dripping onto the desk, looking down at the desk. And unbeknownst to me, he had been flipping through my folder, the dossier, and he knew the deal with Michael Sargent. The deal was, because of the incredible help that Michael Sargent had been getting with learning to read by his amazing aunts who were themselves teachers, Michael was reading about a grade and a half ahead of his peers. And Mr. Reed wondered, what can this kid do? And as he noticed me looking down at the desk, he saw me looking at the cover of Time magazine. And he said, "How much of this can you read?" And he turned it, and I managed to stumble my way through it. I was stumbling, but I was stumbling less than a first grader, and he seemed impressed. And he said, "Okay, kid, a little less mischief, a little more reading, back to class." And that was it. And I thought, no spanking, no paddling, no detention, because I can read well? Education is a good thing. And so even though I came to value education for all the right reasons in that case, or later in life, in that case, I came to value it for all the wrong reasons. But whatever the case, I walked away thinking, knowledge is power. And so thank you for listening to my story, and welcome to the choir.